Shemai! Welcome back to Play Opera. I hope you enjoyed being at the movies last week. This week we are going deep into the forest to explore the adventures of the Cunning Little Vixen by Czech composer Leoš Janáček. That's ja, na, Czech. The Cunning Little Vixen was first performed in 1920 and was actually inspired by a newspaper article called Sharp Ears. It might not surprise you to hear that Janáček was a big fan of animals and he had loads of pets, including dogs, pigeons, a goldfinch and even 3 hens. He treated his hens like they were his children and trained them to come into his home and even share his armchair. There are loads of animals in this opera. There's a badger, a dog, a frog, a dragonfly, an owl, a jay, a woodpecker, crickets, caterpillars, mosquitoes, and you might have guessed it, a fox. You are going to love the animals in this opera. Welsh National Opera's production of The Cunning Little Vixen is very famous, first seen in 1980, but more recently performed last year to lots of applause. The same singer is with us today, and when you hear our soprano sing, listen out, because she's going to be singing in Czech, the composer's own language, which is pretty amazing. And so we begin our story deep in the forest, where the playful vixen's adventure unfolds and all the creatures of the forest come to life. The Cunning Little Vixen. On a warm summer's afternoon in the forest, blue dragonflies are dancing and the forester pauses for a nap on his way home. Nearby, a young vixen is exploring the forest for the first time. She nearly catches a frog. But then the forester catches her and takes the young vixen to be home to be his pet. The vixen is unhappy at the forester's cottage. She's picked on by the forester's children and is tied up. She dreams of her freedom of growing up and becoming independent in the magical forest. She tells the hens in the farmyard that they don't have to listen to the rooster and that they should stand up for themselves. So, as the hens fly away, she runs back into the forest. As winter approaches, cold and alone, the vixen is looking for a home in the woods. She comes across the badger's home and decides that's the one for her. Meanwhile, back at the inn, the forester, the parson and the schoolmaster are putting the world to rights. Basically, chatting a lot. The forester is teased about the vixen he lost, and ashamed he runs back into the woods and searches desperately to bring her back. The vixen mocks these silly men, but the forester, still in pursuit of the vixen, spots her in the woods. He fires his gun, but again she escapes. Then the vixen meets a charming and handsome fox, and they fall hopelessly in love. She admires him from afar and sings with sheer joy. and then introduces himself to Vixen. And then they retire to the Vixen's den and decide to get married. A big party ensues and all the forest celebrate. In the spring, they have little baby cubs. Sometime later, the forester is deep in the woods and sets a trap for the Vixen. But whilst playing with their cubs, the Vixen and the fox spot the wicked trap. Totally unafraid, they laugh at the forester's wicked plan. Sometime later, the forester is wandering through the forest with a poacher. That's someone who captures animals, often on other people's land. And coming across the Vixen, the poacher bites her and shoots her. Tragically, the Vixen dies. It's really, really sad. As time goes on, the forester is back in the woods. He admires the beauty of nature and decides to have a little sleep under the shade of the trees. As he settles down to sleep, he catches a glimpse of a foxglove and is reminded of the Vixen he lost. He wonders if he should capture the fox cub and take her home. He begins to dream of the Vixen he lost, but suddenly a frog lands on him and wakes him up. The frog seems familiar. The forester is sure he knows him, but the frog says, "You don't know me, silly. You know my granddaddy." The forester is reminded of the wondrous cycle of nature, and contented with his lot, gradually he falls back to sleep in the magical forest, where he begins to dream again of the beautiful little Vixen. Wasn't that a magical tale of mischievous animal antics and the circle of life? Sadly, that's all we've got time for today, but don't worry, we will be back next week with some very summery music to put us in the mood for summer holidays and lazy days in the sun. If you haven't done so already, why not log on to our website where you can learn how to make fox ears, just like our very own Cunning Little Vixen, and a frog mask so you can recapture the forest adventures at home, in your garden or at the park. I would love to see the pictures, so do send them in or tag us on social media. And don't forget, suntan lotion for next week's summer holiday episode. Bye for now!